Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. It's Mitchell Renz here. And coming up on the Raiders Report, what to expect if the Raiders sign cornerback Marcus Peters, and the biggest question out there for a lot of people, if they decide to bring in the veteran corner, who exactly is it going to impact the most already in this Raiders secondary? The latest news and rumors around the Raiders and Peters is with the report that the Raiders seem likely to sign Peters before training camp. If you don't know when training camp is, that is July, late July is the area around where training camp usually gets underway. The two sides have remained in contact since his meeting back on May 15th. Graphic Raiders said that a deal has been on the table, and a deal has been on the table since that meeting all the way back there on May 15th. When you talk about Peters, a lot of people are going to look at some of the years that he's had in years past, being that ball hawk, being a player who was extremely aggressive, getting an interception too. Hell, his rookie year he had 8. Last season, coming off a year, he had 47 tackles, an interception, and 6 pass breakups. However, the one bit of conversation when you talk about Peters is he is coming off a little bit of a down year. There's no doubt about it, and honestly, that is to be expected when you consider the fact that he tore his ACL in the year of 2021, and then he had to bounce back quickly. Last year, his coverage stats, a completion percentage against him at 64.3. The yards that he allowed, 711. Touchdowns allowed, 7. Quarterback rating, 113.7. And the reason why I am showing you all these numbers is because, just like fans, we're people, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I would be extremely excited if the Raiders went out and signed Peters because of the name value. And there are a lot of players out there that have bigger name value than other people. So be real with me. I want to know, every single person, whether you're watching this live, whether you watch this on another date, type S for sign, type P for pass. Do you want the Raiders to go out and sign Marcus Peters? I'm going to make this the pinned comment on today's show. You're about to get it with the YouTube ad break, so scroll on down and let me know. My answer to this is yes. I do want the Raiders to go out and add Marcus Peters. Why? This team needs a veteran cornerback, and I look at it as a low risk and a high reward type of player. I was on this show before the NFL draft, and I said, I don't want the Raiders to sign Peters. Why? Because at that time, I didn't. I wanted the Raiders to go out and get a top corner during the 2023 NFL draft. But in life and in football, if certain things don't go the way that you originally planned, you have to realize that, okay, it's okay to take a plan B, even if it's at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're looking around Walmart for it. All I'm saying is the Raiders' original plan, or at least my original plan for them, was not to sign Peters. And then the draft happened. And now we're looking at the current players we have on this roster. Now as it stands, I would be okay, and I would encourage Josh McDaniels. I would encourage Dave Ziegler. I would say, hey, Patrick Graham, go out and get yourself a Marcus Peters. Now, if you're wondering, why are all the reasons out there? I'm glad you asked. The Raiders need to force more turnovers. I have a nice turnover chain here at the Raiders Report studio, and I'd like to use it a little bit more. The problem is, I haven't really been able to use it all that often. Last season, in the first year with Graham, with the silver and black, in terms of interceptions, only 6. That was tied for dead last in the National Football League. Fumbles recovered, 7. That was tied for 23rd in the National Football League. Total turnovers, 13. 13 turnovers is dead last in the NFL. Marcus Peters is going to help make sure that your defense forces more turnovers. Last season, he had 1 interception. Okay. 2020, 4 INTs. 2019, 5, 3, 5, 6, 8. Peters is a very aggressive player. Don't get me wrong. He's going to bite on a route and he's going to get burnt, but that's part of the game. I need somebody that's got swagger. I need somebody that's not afraid to try to make a play. And Peters is going to help you do that. I mean, look at even the forced fumbles. He might have lost a step or two in his coverage game, no doubt. But when a player catches the football, one of his best moves that he does now is punching it out. And it reminds me a lot of like old school Ed Reed, where Players would just be running down the sidelines. Ed Reed, smart player, and punches the football out. The Raiders need more style of those type of dudes. I mean, I remember the interview recently with Brandon Faison. He was talking about one of the things that they're really coaching them up on this year is taking advantage of opportunities and forcing more turnovers. Marcus Peters can definitely help you do that. Let's go to the next reason here why the Raiders should go out and sign Peters. He's not going to cost much. I said low risk, high reward. Why? Because if you're not paying a player a lot of money, there's really not a lot of risk in that. And then one of the biggest reasons why I believe that it's not going to cost a lot is because Peters has to look at himself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm probably coming off my worst year that I've ever had. And I would say that he is coming off the worst season that he's ever had. Career worst year in passer rating allowed, plus he's missed 21 games the last 2 years. So if I'm Peters and I'm like, all right, I'm not really the commodity that I once was. Why not go to a state like Las Vegas where there's no tax? Because the money he makes in Vegas compared to the money he would make in a state like New York, California, night difference. On top of that, he'd be able to play for his favorite team when he was growing up. Maybe he'd be willing to take a little bit less money. So to me, I'm not going to offer him anything over $4 million. If Rock Ya-Sin is out there getting $6 million, I'm going to say, all right, this is your market. If they want to do something with a little bit more incentives, cool, I'm about it. If he goes out there, balls out, helps the Raiders get to the playoffs, I don't care what type of money he gets. I don't. If he is that dude, sure, go pay him. But as it stands right now, $4 million is all I am willing to go when it comes to Marcus Peters. I do know this. If the Raiders sign Peters, we're going to be live here on the Raiders Report. I really hope it's not this weekend because I'm going to be with Alex's family out at their lake house, and I'll still go live, but Chuck's going to be sitting next to me. I hope when he does end up signing, if he ends up signing, it's during the middle of the week. That way Jeremy and I can go wild. I don't want you to miss the show no matter what, though. Turn on those notifications. Make sure you're subscribed. And I want to give a shout out to some of the new subs here in the month of June. Not Easy, Secret Agent Man, Raylan, Robert H., Matthew, you guys hit that subscribe button. Now, if you could do me a big favor, homework assignment. I know, Mitch, homework on the Raiders Report. Take that link that you see below, send it to some Raider fans, and get them to subscribe as well. Let's continue to grow this family here. The next reason why the Raiders should sign Peters, he fits in the Patrick Graham system. Like, we could talk about certain dudes all we want. You could talk about certain talented players, offense and on the defensive side of the football. But if they don't fit the scheme, it doesn't really matter. Peters is going to fit with Graham because they will run. I've said it 100, maybe even 300 times this year. They're going to run press man. And that's when Peters is at his best. So think about all the numbers that I've already shown you about him coming off his worst year. The Baltimore Ravens, plain and simple, didn't use him in the right way. When he was in zone coverage, he was really bad. Like, one of the worst zone coverage corners in the league. However, when you look at his man coverage numbers, he was targeted 28 times. He allowed 12 completions for 183 yards. He had 2 PBUs and a quarterback rating of 81.2. So, the fact that those are the numbers impress, man. The fact that he's been an aggressive corner his entire career. The fact that he's not afraid to get up into your face. The fact that he's a veteran. All of those reasons are why he's going to fit well with the Patrick Graham system. And then the last and always my favorite reason. The guy wants to be a Raider. Like, you know, I know how proud of this organization we are. I know how much we love this team. But the Raiders have not had a lot of success in recent years. That's just saying truth, saying facts. So for a team, or for a player to want to play for a team that hasn't won a lot of games at this point of his career, you know, I mean, I want a dude that puts on that helmet, puts on those cleats, walks into the facility every day, takes a lot of pride of being a Raider. And Graphic Raider had the opportunity before the Pro Bowl to talk to Peters, and this is what he had to say. I spoke to Marcus Peters at the Pro Bowl, and he made it clear to me a desire to play for his childhood team, the Las Vegas Raiders. There's a lot of people out there like, guys want to chase rings. Of course he does. He's got a ring, though. So he's already got one. On top of that now, wouldn't it be really cool to just maybe finish your career right off into the sunset with the team that you grew up rooting for? I don't know about you. I think that's something that I would definitely want. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, how Peters impacts the Raiders. So I just told you why it makes sense for them to sign. But now, which players does it impact? How is it going to impact the defense? Is the defense going to look different with Marcus? All those answers are coming up here. But guess what? They're finally here. Y'all have been asking, and Jeremy Chugs and I have delivered. If you want to get your hands on Chargers fans eat corn the long way shirt, go to chatsports.com/corn. If you're like, oh crap, I didn't get my dad anything for Father's Day. What about a Broncos fans eat corn the long way shirt? And if you got a buddy who's a Chiefs fan out there, or if you just want to get yourself something, Chiefs fans eat corn the long way. If you want to get any of our corn collection shirts, go to chatsports.com/corn. That link's going to be available for you guys down in the comments and in the description of today's video. So remember, y'all, you guys are watching the Raiders Board, and we go live every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, and we always try to get a little bit crazy on these shows, and we're going to get crazy here on today's live show. Now coming up is how Peters impacts the silver and black. Well, the first and the most, I'll say, obvious answer is the Raiders are getting a starting caliber corner. Anytime you can gain a starter, anytime you can add a player that instantly is going to make your defense better, that's a win. It's not rocket science. It's not saying anything crazy, but it's the truth. As it stands right now, this is the Raiders' cornerback room, and I don't necessarily know how much or what the defense would look like exactly because I'm not inside of Josh McDaniels and Patrick Graham's brain. But to me, if I was running this defense and the Raiders went out and they signed Peters, the number one thing I would do is I would kick Nate Hobbs into the slot, which brings me to my next point. Should Hobbs go back to the slot? He played there as a rookie, and he was arguably one of the best slot corners in the National Football League. Entering year 2, struggles a little bit more on the outside. And yes, the Gus Bradley system is easier than the Patrick Graham, but now he's entering year 2. Could you go this route? Could you decide to put Hobbs back in the middle? You put Peters on the outside next to Duke Shelley. This then gives you a lot more versatility and depth with Tyler Hall, Ja'Cory Bennett, Brandon Faison. Like, this team, sneaky good, I'm telling you, if they were to be able to add Marcus Peters. So here's your opportunity and be the coach. Would you start Hobbs in the slot if the Raiders go out and they sign Peters? Or would you maybe start Hobbs and Peters on the outside? You keep Tyler Hall in the middle. Like, what would you do? Would you put Ja'Cory Bennett in the slot? Would you not even start Marcus Peters? All those options are on the table. Give me a yes. Give me a no. I personally would put Hobbs in the slot. Let's go to the next thing here, how it would impact this team. You're probably only going to keep 6 corners. And the reason why you're only going to keep 6 is because you're confident in your 6. If you were like, man, I don't know. I don't know how this cornerback room is going to work out. I don't love what I see. Then you could potentially look at this team ending up going with 7. However, though, with Peters, I see them keeping 6. You know they would end up keeping Peters. You know that they're going to keep Nate Hobbs. Ja'Cory Bennett, lock him in. Brandon Faison, considering the amount of money that they paid him, he would be a lock. I consider Duke Shelley a lock. And then, Tyler Hall, David Long Jr., Sam Webb. The Raiders have a lot of other younger corners, and hell, even corners that they re-signed and signed this offseason that they would have to make a difficult decision in regards to what they would end up doing with that 53-man roster, because I have done a lot of 53-man roster projections. If you don't believe me, they are available for every single one of y'all up on the channel, and I encourage y'all to go check them out. But to me, these would be the cornerbacks that they would keep. And the more and more 53 roster breakdowns that I do, this is the group of corners that I would like by far the most if the Raiders decided to keep them. So, yeah, I do think it'd be bad news for David Long Jr. We got some more reasons coming up here on the Raiders Report for how exactly, if signed by Las Vegas, Peters impacts this team. The defense gets some swagger, and this is not really one that you can look at and simply say, put a number behind it, a statistic. The way that I look at swagger sometimes is the same way I look at momentum. People can say that it doesn't matter. People can say that it doesn't exist. I'm telling you right now, it does. Momentum is a real thing in sports. So is swagger. If you're not out there playing with confidence, if you don't believe in what your coaches are saying, if you don't believe in your teammates next to you, your brothers that you're going out there with, you're not going to have a lot of swagger. You're not going to have a lot of success. Marcus Peters is going to help bring some of that swagger to the nation. And then the final reason here, I will continue to say that I love when teams have young players, but I really love when a team goes out and they add a savvy veteran. If you don't think Peters is an intelligent player, you don't watch a lot of football. Was he athletically gifted? Yes, no doubt about it. But he had a great eye for the quarterback, and he had a great first step. Why? Dude watches a lot of tape. And when I go back and I look at some of these past defenses, let's just go back in the last 2 years. I told everyone, y'all are going to love the Ron Harmon move. Why? He knows the team. He knows the coaching staff. He knows it like the back of his hand, and he's going to be that player coach. Proved to be right. Then in 2021, Casey Hayward, old man, people are like, he's washed. But it was a good move. Why? He knew the Gus Bradley defense like the back of his hand. And a lot of times, I mean, think about it. It's not that far-fetched for a young player in his young 20 years, right? Hell, any NFL player. Sometimes it's easier for that older veteran to be able to communicate with that younger player, translate some coach speak, and help them understand the defense more. That is something that I believe Peters could end up really helping out this defense. And at this point, for how bad this defense has been for as long as they've been bad, I'm willing to go the low risk, high reward at any given moment. And his name right now is Marcus Peters.